Hello again, and welcome to my next review of Season 1 of Game of Thrones. Now, if you haven't watched my previous reviews, the way I do these is I show screen caps of the episode while I retell what happened during the episode, and add in some of my own opinions or thoughts or the relevant backstory that pertains to what we're seeing in front of us. Now, the reason I do it that way is so that I won't accidentally give any big spoilers away for later seasons. And I try to make it as safe as possible for people that are new to the show or non-book readers. I myself never started reading any of the books until after the show started, and I'm still only halfway through book 2. I don't read ahead or anything like that. I've heard a lot of spoilers, but I try not to give anything away just in case you are one of the few people who might actually be new to the show. So that is how I do those. So, as I said, this one is going to be the 5th episode of Season 1 of Game of Thrones. And the episode is called The Wolf and the Lion. And of course that refers to the sigils of the Starks, which is the dire wolf, and the Lannisters, which is the lion. So that is what the name of the episode pertains to, because this is the episode where things really start to get heated up between the Starks and the Lannisters. It's been building for the first 4 episodes, and now it comes to a head at the end of this episode, basically. So that's why the episode is called The Wolf and the Lion, because it refers to those sigils. Now, this one might be a little longer because of a few more screen caps this time, but hopefully you'll stick with me and stick around and enjoy what I have to say. Now, this is the background picture you're seeing is a view of King's Landing from a distance, and it's gonna go away in about a minute, a little less. I just always do my background picture with the first shot of the show, and that is, in this case, the outside view of King's Landing. Now, this episode begins with, it picks up right after the part of the Tournament of the Hand, where they're throwing a tournament to celebrate the new hand, Ned. And this is after the point where the Mountain and Sir Hugh of the Vale were jousting, and somehow Sir Hugh ended up getting killed. Sir Hugh, who Ned's captain of the guard had been asking questions to shortly before. But anyway, so we pick up there, and Ned is walking through the tournament grounds, looking around, and he goes into the tent where the Silent Sisters are preparing Sir Hugh's body. They're part of the Religion of the Seven. They're sort of like modern day nuns that take an oath of silence. But the Silent Sisters, their entire role in this world is to look after and take care of and clean up and deal with all the dead bodies. So they are probably the busiest people in Westeros. You'll see as the show goes on. But anyway, so Ned is going in there to where they're preparing Sir Hugh's body, and Barristan Selmy is in there as well. And Ned is asking more questions about so he had new armor given to him right after Jon Arryn died, and he'd never worn it before. And who picks the opponents? Who decided that Sir Hugh would be fighting the Mountain, who is the Lannisters' very #1 knight, their head henchman, so to speak? So he's still, digging into things and trying to figure out, are the Lannisters really behind everything that's been going on here, leading up to Jon Arryn's death and now Sir Hugh's death as well. So he's asking some questions there, and we get another little bit of backstory about how Barristan and Ned were actually enemies during Robert's Rebellion, because Barristan was the leader of the King's Guard for King Aerys, and Ned was fighting on Robert's side. So they mentioned that really quickly, and Barristan apologizes for, what the Mad King did to Ned's family, and Ned just glosses it over and goes back to his questioning. He doesn't want to talk about it. Then we go into Robert trying to get dressed up to go joust himself. He wants to be part of the tournament. And he's picking on Lancel again. Lancel because Lancel's a Lannister. So he's always picking on Lancel just because Lancel's a Lannister. But, and Ned points out to him that, you know, they have the cute little press plate stretcher comment to send Lancel away, even though there's no such thing. And they're like, oh, how long before he figures it out? But anyway, Robert wants to joust in the tournament, and Ned points out to him, nobody's going to fight against you. You can't joust in the tournament. Nobody would risk hurting you. You're the king. And Robert's annoyed because, as I said in the first episode review, Robert is not really king material. He'd much rather be out in the field fighting and being a general rather than a king. And that also goes back a little bit to when Barristan said they fought as enemies at the Trident. That's actually where Robert defeated Rhaegar Targaryen in battle, the Battle of the Trident. So there's a little mention of that. I don't think they mentioned Rhaegar in that particular instance, but that is where Robert ended up defeating Rhaegar in battle, and then they went to King's Landing, and Jaime had killed King Aerys, and some other stuff happened in King's Landing too. That did involve the Mountain. The Mountain actually murdered Rhaegar's wife and his children, even though they were like a newborn and like 9. And he killed her children and raped Rhaegar's wife, Elia Martell, and then present the babies at their feet. Apparently Tywin Lannister had ordered him to kill them, and that was the first time Ned and Robert stopped speaking to each other, because Robert said that you murdered children and I'm not going to have any part of this, and then they stopped talking until the Greyjoy Rebellion. But of course Robert had his famous comment in response to Ned's outrage, I see no babes here, only dragon spawn. So that goes back to Robert's really, really, really deep-seated hatred of the Targaryens, to the point where he had no problem with Tywin ordering the Mountain to kill 2 little kids and rape and kill Rhaegar's wife just because they were part of the Targaryen line at that point. And as I said, that was the first time Ned and Robert stopped speaking to each other for 8 years. And they didn't speak to each other again until the Greyjoy Rebellion. And after that ended, they didn't seem to be really speaking to each other much either until, you know, the Hand died and we got to episode 1. So there's been a long history of Robert's hatred for the Targaryens being a big problem with Ned's opinions of the Targaryens, which is strange considering there was a Targaryen king who killed Ned's father and brother, but then again, that Targaryen king was insane, and Ned seems to be able to realize that it's not the whole family of the Targaryens that he should blame for one insane person. But Robert doesn't see it that way. Anyway, we go back to the tournament and we meet Loras Tyrell for the first time. He is the Knight of the Flowers. Pretty boy. And Sansa is, I think he's pretty too, so I'm not making fun of him. I like Loras. But anyway, Sansa's all crushing on Loras, and he gives her a rose, which I believe is what Rhaegar did with Lyanna at the tournament of Harrenhal. Gave her a rose. He's such a wicked, vicious rapist, right, Robert? But anyway, so we see Loras and Renly exchange a little look, and now Loras is about to joust with the Mountain, and Sansa's getting worried and saying, "Oh, don't let him hurt him," because, you know, last time the Mountain was jousting against somebody, he killed him. But yeah, they're going to be jousting each other. And Renly and Baelish have a little bit of a veld comment there where they're betting on opposite people. Renly bets on Loras and Baelish bets on the Mountain. And Renly tells Baelish, "Oh, well, you know, if you won, you could buy a friend." And there's a comment later where when Loras wins the jousting, Renly says, oh, it would be so nice if you would have been able to get a friend, or have a friend, and Baelish like, when will you be having your friend? And he looks at Loras, so you can tell there's a little something going on between Renly and Loras, which we see a little bit more of later. But as I said, Loras ends up winning because Gregor's mare was in heat and he couldn't control her, and when Loras's horse got near her, she, bucked and stuff, and that's what caused the mountain to lose. And Baelish said, oh, well, Loras knew that. And Sansa's like, oh, he wouldn't have done that. There's no honor in tricks. And Baelish says, oh, not honor, but quite a bit of gold. So anyway, still Sansa being naive little Sansa, not realizing that all these people are kind of crooked. So anyway, after Loras defeats the mountain in his joust, the mountain gets so ticked off at his horse. I don't know, the mountain and Sansa should get along really well. They like misdirecting their anger, I'd say. But anyway, so he gets all ticked off at the horse, and he literally chops off this horse's head with one blow. Yeah. The mountain, he's such a sweetie. It's too bad we don't see him that much in the show, but yeah, he's real sweet. I'm sure he had nothing to do with what happened to Rhaegar's wife and children. Yeah, not him. He's a sweetheart. But anyway, and he's the Lannisters' favorite knight. Moving on. Okay, so he cuts off the horse's head, and then he goes after Loras. He tries to attack Loras. And who comes to the rescue but the Hound, the mountain's little brother. He breaks up the fight, basically. He fights off the mountain, and they're going at it. It's turning into a real fight. And eventually, well, Joffrey's watching it, and he's getting all happy. It's like, ooh, more blood. Am I going to get to see somebody die? Joffrey, Charles Manson Jr., him. And finally, oh, there's the horse. But finally, Robert puts a stop to it, and Loras comes over and, thanks the Hound and says, you saved my life, sir. I owe you my life, sir, is what he says. And the Hound's like, I'm no sir. Hound really doesn't like knights. That's why he never took the knight's oath. He really hates knights. Could have something to do with his brother. Possibly. I'm no shrink, but maybe. That's why he doesn't like knights. Because his brother is such a sweetheart. And we got the story in the last episode about his brother burning his face all up when they were kids because he played with his toy. So yeah, the Hound comes to the rescue, and the Hound is saving Loras' life, and he's no sir. He's not a knight. So that's basically the gist of what occurs during the tournament. The Hound actually saves Loras from his brother, more or less. Even though the mountain and the Hound, if the fight wouldn't have been stopped, who knows how that would have turned out, but Robert finally stopped the fight. So, that's basically the way the tournament ends. I think that's the last scene we have of the tournament. So anyway, that's that. And we get a couple more caps here of the tournament. But after the tournament, we're going to go back to the King's Road with Catelyn and her new prisoner, Tyrion Lannister. So there, like I said, there's a couple more caps of the tournament. But we go back to well, actually, it's not the King's Road. It's I think he calls it the Eastern Road. And so they stop for a minute and start talking, and Tyrion's like, this isn't the way to King's Landing. You're not taking me to King's Landing, are you? Even though you said that you were. And she said, yes, I did. Many times and very loudly. So basically, Catelyn deliberately had everybody at the inn at the crossroads thinking that they were going to King's Landing. But really, she's taking him east to the Vale. And the major holdfast at the Vale is the Eyrie. And that's where her sister is. Her sister Lysa. The one who sent her the message saying the Lannisters killed her husband. So they're heading towards her instead of going to King's Landing. And Tyrion says to her, how long has it been since you've seen your sister? Like, well, obviously, we know that Lysa had been at King's Landing when Jon Arryn died. And Cersei was queen there, so it's a very good chance that Tyrion had seen Lysa at that point in time as well. Because, that's where the Lannisters are now. And he says, well, how long has it been since you've seen your sister? And Catelyn says, 5 years. And he goes, she's changed. So Tyrion is kind of hinting at, your sister isn't quite the person you used to know here. And Catelyn doesn't want to hear any of it. And Tyrion points out, if I had actually tried to kill Bran, why would I have used my own dagger? That's just ridiculous. That's stupid. I'm not that stupid. Come on. And the one guy asks Cat, do you want me to gag him? And Tyrion goes, why? Am I starting to make sense? So that's another fun little Tyrion line. And Catelyn says, why would I do that? That's a line that gets repeated in a later season in a really important episode by somebody else saying it to Cat. So just keep that in mind. We're going to get a call back in a later season. Somebody says, why would I do that to Cat in a very important scene. But anyway, they do a lot of that. They say things in season 1 that seem really innocent, and then you hear them called back to at a later date, and you're like, oh my god, they said that in season 1. So there's so much foreshadowing in this show. It's so much. It's insane how much foreshadowing there is, but you never notice it when you're first watching. It's only after you watch the later episodes and you're like, oh wow, they talked about that or said that or did something relating to that in season 1. So that's a really cool little tie-in that they do. One of them, there's many. So anyway, they're talking, and the hill tribes of the Vale attack. And this is where we get to see Bronn in action for the first time. Bronn, the one who gave Tyrion his room at the crossroads, and I said, oh, you'll love Bronn. Everybody loves Bronn. And that's Bronn, B-R-O-N-N, not N, as opposed to Bran. Bran is Catelyn's son, B-R-A-N. Their names are very similar, but I hear people messing them up a lot. But Bran is the son, and Bronn is this guy who's helping them fight off the hill tribes, and you get to see him in action for the first time. And Catelyn's all hiding and trying not to get killed by these people, and finally she unties Tyrion to help with the fighting, and Tyrion actually takes out one guy with a shield. Little Tyrion takes out some dude with a shield. So yeah, he's got it in him when he needs to. But anyway, and after the fight, one of Bronn's many hilarious lines that he has throughout the series, and he says, oh, after a fight like that, you need a woman. He's talking to Tyrion. And Tyrion, he looks at Catelyn and says, I'm willing as she is. So I laughed so hard when I heard that, because obviously, I mean, come on, Tyrion and Catelyn. Oh, that would be an interesting pairing. But anyway, so that's our little spat with the hill tribes, and you get to see how good of a fighter Bronn really is. I mean, the only ones left standing, really, are Bronn, Tyrion, Catelyn, and Roderick. And, Roderick's a master at arms, and Catelyn wasn't really involved in the fight. I mean, there might be some other guys living, but those are the only named characters that, are still standing, and you see all the dead guards lying around. So anyway, Bronn's pretty good with a sword, and when pushed, Tyrion can fight if he needs to. So anyway, they go back to their trip toward the Eyrie to meet Lysa, who has changed, as Tyrion hinted. We'll see her later. So after this, we go back to Winterfell, where Bran is having lessons with Maester Luwin, who is pretty much the only really person of note left there other than the kids, Robb and Theon and Bran and Rickon. So Lewin is pretty much running everything at this point. I mean, Rob's in charge, obviously, since he's the oldest son and all. But Lewin's pretty much doing everything else. So he's teaching Bran about the different houses and their sigils and their house words. Each house has a slogan or a motto or whatever, as well as having a sigil. And certain lords that run their household, like the Starks, their sigil is the direwolf, their words are winter is coming, and they run Winterfell, which is the main place in the north. So he's going over that, and of course Theon and his Greyjoy pride, he says, you know, we're famed for our archery, navigation, lovemaking, and Lewin adds, and failed rebellions. So yeah, that was funny too. Lewin doesn't have that many funny lines, but that was a good one. But anyway, and Bran is talking about the words family, duty, honor, which is the Tully words, and his mother was a Tully, and he's like, oh, so family comes first, right? And Lewin's like, yes, but she's doing this to help her family. He's like, how can she help her family or protect her family if she's not here? And so Bran's a little upset that Catelyn left before he even woke up. I mean, we get why and everything, but he's got a point as well, you know. Leaving him there like that, he's 10. But, and Lewin says, oh, well, she'll be here soon. And Bran says, oh, well, where is she? And Lewin says, well, I don't know. And Bran goes, well, then how can you tell me she's going to be here soon? Gotcha, Lewin. And Lewin's like, you know, you're too smart for your own good. That actually is said to another Stark in season 2. But anyway, so yeah, you're too smart for your own good. And then Bran looks over at Theon, who's doing his archery, and Bran's like, you know, I'm never going to be able to shoot. And he's back to being depressed about being crippled and everything. And he says, well, you know, if the saddle Tyrion designed actually works, you can shoot from horseback. And he's like, what? From horseback? And he said, yeah, Dothraki boys learn to shoot when they're 4. So we get a little bit of a reference to the Dothraki there as well. So they're pretty widely known, even in Westeros, for how good of warriors they are. So that's a little Bran school lesson. And then we more of Roz, the only prostitute in Winterfell, or like I said in the other episode, maybe I guess the prettiest one. And Roz is with Theon, and Theon is asking her about, oh, so you slept with Tyrion, huh? Though he's a Lannister and all. And he notices that she has a lion necklace that Tyrion gave her, and he's like, oh, well, he's a generous tipper, isn't he? And she's saying, oh, are he jealous? And he's like, no, you're just a whore. Why would I be jealous? And then he goes into, you know, all his, oh, my family has run the Iron Islands for thousands of years. Nobody can look down on me. And she's like, yeah, now you're the Stark's ward. And that gets him annoyed as well. And he finally says, well, you know, I don't want to pay for it. And she's like, well, then get yourself a wife. So, Roz is a little bit spunky. You know? Any Brits listening might get the pun. But anyway, so yeah, that's a little just quick Theon Roz, and Theon's, you know, hyping up the family he hasn't even been with for 9 years, and Roz is even the lowborn like Roz is like, whatever, Theon, it's all talk, you're not really part of your family anymore, and reminds him of that, and that's a sore spot for Theon, so to speak, that he's not part of his family anymore, and he's actually with the Starks, who were his family's enemy in the Greyjoy Rebellion. But anyway, just that quick little more insight into Theon's character and personality, so to speak. And then we get to Arya chasing cats, like Syria told her to do. She's chasing cats. And then at the end of her chasing the cats scene, we see that Varys is going in to talk to Ned. And he's like closing all the doors and windows and you know, being all polite. So how's your son? You know, that kind of thing, just as he closes the windows and doors, and he gives a little wave to Jory as he closes the door, and Jory's just looking at him like, what are you up to? Because nobody trusts Varys because he's the master of whispers, the spy master, and everybody, doesn't trust a spy master because you never know what they know and all that. So he's just a little bit of that. But he goes in and he's talking to Ned and saying, if the wrong ears hear what I'm about to tell you, I'll lose my head. And he says, the king's a fool. Your friend, but he's a fool. And it's like, I've been here a month. Why are you just now talking to me? And he's like, I didn't trust you. So he's basically been watching Ned this whole time to determine if he could trust him. So, he tells Ned that, the queen's not the only one that's watching you. And, he says that the king is going to die just like Jon Arryn did. And he says that Jon Arryn could have been killed by a poison called the Tears of Lys. And that's the poison is clear and tasteless, and it doesn't leave a trace. And he also points out, what happened with Sir Yu and why did that happen. And he says, so are you saying that someone paid Sir Yu to poison Jon Arryn? It's like, perhaps that's what happened. And he's like, well, who would have done that? And Varys just says, someone who could afford to. And we all know. We all know who the richest family in Westeros is, don't we? So, and then Ned finally says, you know what? Well, why would they kill him? What was the reason that anybody would have to kill him? The motive, so to speak. And Varys' only answer is, because he started asking questions. Which is what Ned's been doing this whole time. So, yeah. So Varys is coming in with his suspicions and letting Ned in on them because he's finally decided that he could trust Ned, I guess, is what we get from this. So anyway, just a little bit more of trying to solve the mystery of Jon Arryn's death and why it happened and who did it. So there's that, and let me see. Our next scene we're going to go to, there's a couple more caps for this one. But the next scene is Arya back to chasing her cats. And she chases the cat into the dungeons, which is where we get our first view of the dragon skulls that Viserys was talking about in the bathtub scene from the other episode. And you get to see how huge this dragon skull really is. I mean, it's way bigger than Arya and taller than her, and she can actually fit inside, as we see later when the other people come in and she decides to hide, because Arya is already starting to get the point that they shouldn't trust anybody, but she hides in the dragon skull while these two other people come in and they start having this conversation, and they say, oh, we're not ready yet, the hands found one bastard in the book and the rest will come, and what will he do? And they're basically trying to figure out, what that's going to mean because of Ned looking into this. And they say, oh, we'll be at war soon, but we're not ready. If one hand can die, why not the other? We need time. And they're obviously, planning something here, and they know that, and they say the wolf and the lion will be at each other's throats. So there's where we get our title placement, and they're basically talking about, Ned and the Starks and the Lannisters going to war and all that. And they say something about the savages and how Khal Drogo won't move till his son is born, and the savages are delaying, but they need to move fast. And so the two people that are talking are obviously Varys and Illyrio Mopatis, who was the guy that Daenerys and Viserys were staying with in episode 1. So it looks like these two have something in mind for the Targaryens, and they're saying, oh, we're not ready to put our plan into action yet. And Ned is, going to start this war, and we're not ready to, have our people come in and make their move, so to speak. So you get the idea that those two want the Targaryens to come over. I mean, that's what I got from it. They want the Targaryens to come back and take over, but now this other war is starting. So they're upset about that, that things are moving faster than they should be. So then we get to the throne room, and Littlefinger staring longingly at the throne, and Varys comes in, and they have one of their many verbal jousting matches, so to speak, where you know, they're insulting each other and, you know, playing it off like they're being polite and having conversation, but really they're just taking digs at each other the whole time. And you know, Varys is talking about, or Littlefinger is talking about Varys' sexual preferences and his being a eunuch, and Varys is like, I've heard that you cater to all kinds of tastes, including people that want to be with the dead, and that wouldn't exactly be in accordance with the king's laws, now would it? You know, that kind of thing. They're just, oh, I know this about you, and I know this about you, and blah, blah, blah. And it all comes down to them saying that, Varys, basically, he says that he saw Baelish talking to the Hand, and Baelish says, oh, well, I saw you talking to some foreign diplomat. I wonder what that's about. And Varys threatens to tell the Queen that Baelish is the one who implicated the Lannisters in the attempt on Bran's life. And Baelish threatens to tell the King that Varys is meeting with a known Targaryen ally. So, yeah, I know this about you, and I know this about you, and if I told the King, you'd be in trouble, and if I told the Queen, you'd be in trouble. So they're basically saying, oh, I have something over you, but I have something over you, so what are we going to do about it? Ha ha. So that's what that whole conversation basically boils down to. And then Renly comes in, and he interrupts and says, oh, the king has called a meeting of the small council. And they're like, the king? Because Robert never goes to the small council meetings. So that's odd in itself, that the king is calling a small council meeting, because he doesn't care. He never goes to those. And Varys turns around. He's like, oh, yes, there's a disturbing news from far away. Haven't you heard? So then he walks out, and Baelish follows him out and everything. So that's the little tiff between the two sneakiest guys in the capital, the master spies and Baelish, who I don't know if people actually don't. I don't think this is a spoiler, because ever since I first started watching the show, I didn't trust Baelish at all. I'm like, no, he's too shifty and shady. I don't trust him. And even though Varys is the spy master, I didn't really have that feeling about Varys. I trusted Varys a little more than I trusted Baelish. And like I said, we're not even done with the book series yet, so I don't know how either of those are going to turn out. But from the start, I always thought Varys was a more sympathetic character than Baelish. I thought he had better motives than Baelish did, but that was just my opinion. I mean, I'm not even giving spoilers away. I'm just talking about how I saw it from the very beginning. I always thought that Varys was a little more trustworthy than Baelish, even though they're both, like I said, the sneakiest guys in the kingdom. But anyway, we'll get more of them later, I'm sure, and we'll find out if I'm right, because like I said, the books aren't even done yet. We don't know. So anyway, they go off to their small council meeting. And then we go back outside with, Eyrie had taken a different way out of the dungeons because they locked the gate behind them. And she ends up outside, and she's trying to get back to the castle, the Red Keep, to tell her dad about this conversation she heard. And the guards are giving her trouble, and they say, oh, well, they think she's just a little, commoner boy, because she's all grubby and dirty and dressed in pants, and saying, do I need to smack you in your ear to help with your hearing? Go away. And she's like, no, my dad's the Hand. I live here, and he'll have your head if you don't let me in. You need to smack on your ear to help with your hearing. So, yeah, Arya, she's a little spitfire. She'll talk back to these guards with weapons and everything. I mean, yeah, I might get her in trouble someday, but it's pretty darn funny to see her talking back to these guys, and they're just like, yeah, I guess we should listen to her, huh? So they actually let her pass. So anyway, Arya never fails to amuse me. But anyway, so she goes in, to talk to her dad. And she tells him about this conversation she had heard in the cellar, or the basement, or the dungeons, whatever you want to call it, and about how the wolf and the lion will be at each other's throats, and talking about another hand could die, and something about the savages, and she's like, I didn't see the guys, but I think one was fat. She's just, she's worried about this conversation, is trying to tell her dad everything she can remember about it, and how it sounded important to her, even though she didn't really know what they were talking about, but she thought that it was something he should know. So Ned's got his own little spy without even knowing it. I didn't know that your daughter could be a spy at the time. No. Keep her around. She's valuable. But anyway, so Ned hears all this from her, and even though the story isn't very clear, he gets the idea that, oh boy, things are getting dangerous around here, because, he's been getting threats and stuff from Cersei, too, and just everybody's saying, oh, well, everybody knows what you're doing, and you're going to get yourself in trouble, and now his little girl is telling him the same thing, that there's people running around the dungeon talking about how he might be getting killed, and there's a war about to happen, and all this other stuff. So yeah, he's really starting to get the idea that, things are going to probably get bad here if everybody's telling him this. So Yoren from the Night's Watch, the recruiter from the Night's Watch, comes in, and he says that he comes to King's Landing to get recruits from the dungeons, but the reason he rode so fast to get there is because he had a really important message for Ned. And what he tells Ned is that Catelyn has taken Tyrion Lannister, the imp, they call him, prisoner. And obviously Ned knows this is bad. That's going to have repercussions big time. Because, him and Catelyn agreed, that he would find proof and then tell Robert. But he hasn't found his proof yet. And Catelyn went and captured Tyrion. And if he's heard about it, everybody else is going to know about it. And the Lannisters are not going to be happy. So yeah, things are getting tense around here because they already are suspecting Ned. And now Catelyn's done this. They're not going to be happy about this. And things are going to go downhill real fast here. So that's basically what Yoren has come to tell him. So we get more foreshadowing of the coming war between the wolf and the lion. More references to the title. So we have a couple more caps here. And, before he talked to Yoren, he had sent Arya out of the room. And when Arya goes out of the room, Jory's supposed to take her back to her room. And she asks Jory, well, how many guards do we have? And Jory says 50. And she's like, you wouldn't let anybody kill Dad, would you? And Jory says, no, of course not. So even Arya is really getting worried too. And so yeah, things are getting, like I said, we're getting very tense in the capital with what's going on and what's coming to a head between the Starks and the Lannisters. So, after this episode, or this scene, sorry, in this scene, after this, we go back to the Eyrie, and we meet Lysa Tully Arryn, for the first time. Now, she is Catelyn's sister, who, like I said, there are a couple more caps here, but she is Lysa's sister who was married to Jon Arryn, who was the Hand of the King, who was dead in the first episode. And then she sent the message to Catelyn saying, oh, the Lannisters killed my husband. And that's, what got their first suspicions about the Lannisters going. And then Bran fell, and then the assassin, and the dagger, and all that, and it's all just piling on. So anyway, we meet Lysa. And, well, first things first, the Eyrie looks really cool. It's like this, it's up in you're going to see in a little bit when the caps get to it, but it's like a castle on top of a mountain kind of thing, or built on maybe two mountains, because there's a door in the throne room that when you open it, it's just air, nothing below it. So we get to our Eyrie and we see it for the first time, and the guards give her a little bit of trouble about when she gets there, and she said there was no time, and I'm Lysa's sister, and I have Tyrion as a prisoner, and I need to talk to her, and find out what she knew about the Lannisters, and he supposedly had something to do with the attack on my family too, and finally she gets them to let her in. Now, the book people, they have a really big problem with the Eyrie, the way it's depicted in the show, I guess, because in the books there's this 40 pages or so, I don't know, about how hard it is to get to the Eyrie. There's like all these narrow mountain trails up the side of the cliff, and there's another character that we don't see in the show yet who is responsible for helping everybody get up the trail, and it's a treacherous ordeal to get to the Eyrie, and just it shows how impregnable the Eyrie is, and they didn't show any of that in the show, so the book people are all in a tiff about that. But anyway, this is another great Bronn line when Tyrion says, "Oh, they say the Eyrie's impregnable," and Bronn says, "Give me 10 good men and some climbing spikes, and I'll impregnate the bitch." Oh, Bronn. Oh, everybody loves Bronn. He is like comic relief so much. I love his lines. But anyway, so we get our view of the Eyrie, and they show the narrow path leading across the way to the Eyrie, but that's all we get so far. So then we go back, and there's been another meeting called, Ned, and, well, the same meeting that Varys and Baelish were told about, but Ned gets told that Robert's called this meeting. And this meeting does not go well either. So basically, Robert called this meeting because he had heard that Daenerys Targaryen is now pregnant. Which goes back to what he told Ned in episode 2 about, oh, soon she's going to have an heir, and then they're going to attack us and all this stuff. And, sorry, I've still got the itchy throat going on. But, and Ned's like, you know, and Robert wants to kill her. You know, he's like, she's pregnant, we have to kill her. And he says, you know, you're talking about murdering a child, and you'll dishonor yourself forever for this. And Robert's like, I don't care about honor, she needs to die. And everybody seems to be taking Robert's side, and obviously they all kiss his butt because he's the king, even when he's wrong, kind of like he said that Sansa has to do with Joffrey. But anyway, so Ned is not happy about this at all, and he said, where are you getting this information anyway? How would you know that some teenage girl over in Essos is having a baby? Where are you getting your information? How reliable is this? And they say, Sir Jorah Mormont told them. So Jorah is spying on Dany for Robert. Kind of explains why he ran out the door as soon as he found out Dany was pregnant, doesn't it? So yeah, Jorah is spying on Dany, and he's the one that told them that she's having a baby. And Ned's like, what? Mormont? He's a traitor. How do you believe him? And Baelish was like, well, he sold slaves. He's not really a traitor, he just sold slaves. Small difference to you, I know. But yeah, Ned's like, no, we're not going to commit murder because of what some traitor who fled execution happens to say. And Robert's like, well, yeah, and if he's right, and if he's telling the truth, and she has a kid, then they're going to attack us, and people are going to die, and it's going to be a war. And then they say, you know, that they'd be saving thousands of lives if they killed Dany and her unborn child. So, kind of like the thought police. Hey, let's kill them for something they might do. Yeah. So, yeah. And Ned still is not wanting to hear any of it. He said, you know, I followed you into war twice, and I didn't doubt you, and I went along with it, and I'm not going to follow you now. This is where I draw the line. We're not killing this teenage girl and her unborn child. We're just not going to do it. The Robert I knew didn't used to tremble in fear at the shadow of an unborn child. And Robert does not want to hear that. he's like, you're gonna do what I tell you, or I'm gonna find somebody who will. And Ned's like, well, good luck to him. And he throws the pen down and leaves. And, Robert is, screaming, traitor, traitor, and I'll have your head for this, and having his tantrum as Ned decides he's gonna quit and not be Hand anymore. So, not only is he dissolving his friendship with Robert over this killing of Daenerys and her child, but he's even giving up his role and refusing to do his job because he finds it so abhorrent that Robert is trying to kill Daenerys Targaryen and her unborn child. And again, I say, if Rhaegar Targaryen had done the things that Robert says he did to Ned's sister, and then on top of that, Aerys killing his father and his brother, even though, well, Aerys was insane. We covered that earlier. But if Rhaegar had been this horrible person that did these horrible things to Ned's baby sister, she might have been older than him, I don't know. But anyway, it was Ned's sister. If he had done these horrible things, why does Ned have such a huge problem with Robert's hatred for the Targaryens? Why? It really makes you wonder. But anyway. So Ned leaves, and he has retired, so to speak, quit his job. And then he goes and he starts packing and to leave, because he's like, okay, that's it. I've had enough of this place. I'm done with this place. I'm done with this job. I'm done with all of it. I'm not putting up with it. Robert is not the man I used to know. I'm out of here. And he tells Joffrey to go and take his daughters and get them out of there, and he's going to be behind them. And then Baelish comes in. He's like, oh, you're leaving already? Like, well, yeah, he's leaving already. I mean, remember, he also knows what Catelyn has done, too, so he knows that it's about to hit the fan, so to speak. So he wants to get out of there. And then Baelish was like, well, very well, but I can take you to the last person Jon Arryn spoke to before he died. So it reels him back in. Ned still wants to know the truth, and Baelish is offering him some part of that. So it ends up that Ned decides to stay a little bit longer to go and find out who this person was that Jon Arryn spoke to before he died, because he really wants to get to the bottom of things. So he decides to not leave yet and go with Baelish to talk to whoever this person was. Alrighty, then we go back to the Eyrie and meet Crazy Lysa. Yes, Crazy Lysa and her lovely son Robin. She's not happy about Catelyn bringing Tyrion there. She's having a bit of a fit while her, 10-year-old breastfeeds. Yeah, that's what's happening. You didn't imagine it? No. But the throne looks really cool. The driftwood throne looks really cool. But anyway, so, and then she says, oh, that, how dare you bring a Lannister here, and he murdered my husband, and Tyrion's like, oh, did I do that too? I've been really busy. Oh, ever's a jokester, Tyrion. And basically, Catelyn gets the idea. Lysa's flipped her lid. So anything she says is kind of questionable. To put it mildly, Lysa's gone a little bit loopy. And we also get the lovely Robin line, where he's like, is that the bad man? I want to watch the bad man fly. Ah, Robin. Oh, crazy Robin, crazy Lysa. Crazy, yes, but fun. Fun as well. So anyway, it turns out that Lysa doesn't want to even, listen to Catelyn, and she tells them to throw Tyrion in the sky cells and introduce him to Mord, the jailer, or whatever. So Tyrion ends up getting taken away by this big, ugly, deformed, mutant-looking dude, Mord. We'll see more of Mord later, lucky us. But he gets thrown into the sky cells, and you see that the sky cells are these weird, three-walled cells. They're like dungeons, but they don't have the fourth wall. And instead, the fourth wall is open, like a big old window. And when you look out, it's like thousands of feet down. So you can leave anytime you want. You just have to make a 1,000-foot jump. You'll be fine, I'm sure. So anyway, that's the sky cells, and they're pretty cool looking also. So anyway, we meet Crazy Lysa and Crazy Robin, and Catelyn realizes, okay, I didn't come to the right place, and Lysa's lost it, and I'm not really gonna accomplish much here. And then Tyrion gets thrown in the cell, and that's pretty much the end of that scene. I mean, there's a couple more caps, but that's our introduction to Lysa and Aaron, and Catelyn realizing that her sister is not quite the person she used to know. So, Lysa's went over the deep end. Alright, after we get a couple more caps here of the introduction to Lysa, Tully, Aaron, I guess side note is, yes, Lysa was married to the guy that was, Ned's foster father, Jon Arryn. They actually got married at the same time. It was kind of like a double wedding. Right before they went to war, Lysa and Catelyn married Jon Arryn and Ned Stark. I don't think it's that important, but it's just a little bit of history about, because they basically were tying the North and the Vale and the Riverlands all together in an alliance. And that's what those marriages were about. But anyway, so then we go to Tyrion in the Sky Cell, and after that, we go to, our next scene is going to be Loras and Renly. And, if you remember back during the tournament, Baelish made a couple of little comments, insinuating things about Loras and Renly. Yeah, they're together, they're a couple. Now, and we see a little bit of that. I mean, I don't even think they show them kiss, really. They're just having a chat as they have their shirts off and Loras is shaving them. But here's another thing I just want to say, since we're still getting into the caps, is, there. But I've watched a lot of Game of Thrones reviews, and I got a little bit of a problem with some people's reviews, in that, you see all these love scenes between men and women all through the show, all the time. And the people that do these reviews, they don't even blink at all these love scenes between guys and girls. They don't say nothing about it. And then I've heard reviewers, when they get to a scene between Loras and Renly, and they're just like, oh god, yuck, yuck, yuck. Don't show that. We don't want to see that. We don't want to see that. No, no, no. Go away. And I'm just like, really? Really? I mean, these two guys, they don't even kiss in the scene. I mean, there's a scene later where they show a little bit more between them. But the point is that people are still like that in 2014. You have no problem with a guy and girl love scene, but you flip your crap if you see two guys together. That just bugs me. But anyway, back, sorry, here ends this public service announcement. But anyway, back to, Loras and Renly chatting. And we find out that, let's see, Loras thinks that Renly should be king. And we get an idea of the Baratheons' brotherly love. And, Robert and Stannis never really got along with Renly. Actually, none of the brothers get along. And his two older brothers think that he is useless because he's not a war commander like they both were. But at the same time, they say that, Stannis has no personality and no friends, and nobody really likes Stannis at all, and Stannis is the middle brother, the one that is right before Renly in the line of succession. And that Robert's a fool, and Stannis has no personality and no friends, and Renly is the one who's really cut out for court life, and that he should be king, and that Loras is so rich he could, support his reign, because the Tyrells are the second richest family in Westeros. And they talk about that, that not everyone is such a gifted swordsman as Loras, and Loras is like, oh, I practice at it every day, because Rennie's talking about how he's not a soldier, but Loras does, and so there's that, and they mentioned that Robert and his whores, and too bad he couldn't be as interested in his wife, and he's like, and Renly says, oh, but he has a deep abiding lust for her money. So, and that Robert loves his killing, and Loras is like, how did he become king anyway? And Renly goes, because Robert loves his killing. So, yeah. And Loras is trying to get him used to the sight of blood, and saying, if you were to become king, you'd have to get used to this. You're going to see a lot of it. So, Loras is basically putting it in Renly's head that he should be the king, and that people love him, and that they would want him for their king. And he's like, well, I am fourth in the line of succession. And he's like, yeah, and where's Robert in the line of succession? Good point, Loras. Robert didn't have any claim to the throne at all. He just, killed all the Targaryens. I mean, the Mountain helped, and Jaime helped, and Tywin helped, but the point is he just wiped out all the Targaryens, other than the two that got smuggled out, Daenerys and Viserys. Actually, it was Viserys and their mother, Rhaella, who was pregnant with Daenerys at the time, I believe. And then she went into labor, and then they smuggled out Viserys, and Daenerys and Rhaella had died giving birth to Dany, which makes sense if she had a son almost in his upper 20s at the time she had Dany. No wonder she lost the baby. She was probably in almost 40, well, upper 40s, 50, somewhere in there when she had Dany. But anyway, so, yeah, that's how Robert got the throne. He just killed all the Targaryens. So he wasn't really in line of succession either. And then we go to Cersei and Robert having a little chat together. And a lot of people really like this scene. I like the scene. But the reason I say that is because a lot of people say that this is a really good scene and they really like it. But this scene's not in the book. Oh, you mean it's possible for there to be something good on the show that's not in the book? Interesting. Interesting. Moving on. Okay. Anyway, this is Cersei and Robert chatting, and they're talking about what if the Dothraki attack, and Cersei's saying, oh, they don't have discipline, they don't have armor, they don't have siege weapons, and he's like, wow, you sound just like your father. And she's like, well, is he wrong? And he said, well, what's the stronger number, 1 or 5? He does this little analogy, and she's like, 5, and he's like, yeah, 5 different armies fighting for 5 different lords? No. Or 1 army fighting behind 1 leader. What's stronger? And so he has a point there that, everybody in the kingdom is so busy, worrying about their own little piece of the world, and they're not as strong as they think they are. There's more of them, but they all want something different, and they all want to fight for somebody different, so they're not really that strong after all. But if you have 1 army with 1 cause who wants 1 leader, they're going to be stronger. So he points that out to her. So as I said, Robert he knows his military strategies. If he doesn't know how to be a king, at least he knows how to fight. So anyway, they talk about that, and she started the scene with sorry about your marriage to Ned not working out. I think that was a pretty funny line as well. Sorry, I'm looking at my notes and the screen caps together, and I mean, I was going on to, jumping around. But she says that, without the hand, everything's gonna fall to pieces, and he's like, oh, so you want Jaime to be hand? And she's like, no, he's not serious enough. And then they go into their talk about the Dothraki. And he says, if they attack us, yeah, we can hide in our castles. They can't get through, but then how long is it going to be before they decide that the Targaryens are their rightful rulers? Because this whole time the Dothraki have been killing, burning, raping, raiding, pillaging, and we're just sitting here hiding. So how long before they want an end to it all and decide to side with the Targaryens after all? And then he talks about, how her father wants to own the world, and Ned just wants to go hide in the snow, and nobody wants the same thing. And they're all just about sorry, sound always cuts out at an hour. But he's talking about how everybody in the realm is just about backstabbing and scheming and arse-licking and money grubbing, and none of them have a united cause anymore, so they aren't as strong as they should be because everybody's out for themselves and not for the crown anymore. And then they go into a little bit of a talk about Lyanna, and he says, well, you've never asked me about her ever in 17 years. And she said, well, I was afraid just mentioning her name would somehow, breathe life back into her ghost. And now it doesn't matter, because what harm could her name do that we haven't already done to each other for 17 years? And he says his little line about someone took her away from him, and 7 kingdoms couldn't fill the hole she left behind. So he's still really pining for Lyanna, and then he admits, I don't even remember what she looks like anymore. It's been so long. So, and then Cersei says, was there ever, or she says that she once felt something for him when they first got married, and was there ever a moment when the two of them could have been happy? And he says, no. Just like that, no. There was never a moment. He was too in love with Lyanna to even give Cersei a chance. I mean, not that Cersei's a very nice person, but at that point in time, you can see that she was kind of in a bad situation too. So, she's a product of her environment, so to speak. But not defending her, but you can see how it happened. But anyway, so yeah. And he says, well, after he says that there was never a moment that they could have been happy together, he said, does that make you feel better or worse? And she said it doesn't make her feel anything. So you get a real bit of insight here into Cersei and Robert's marriage. Cersei wanted to give it a chance. They got married when she was 19, but it never really had a chance at all. Robert was too in love with Lyanna. Cersei was messing with her brother. I think they actually started that when they were like 15, I think, was when her affair with Jaime started. And then she got married after Robert 4 years later and wanted to give it a chance because, she wanted to be queen. But Robert was too in love with Lyanna to even pay attention to Cersei. And so their marriage really never had a chance in the first place, but they stuck together for the sake of the kingdom. And then they say, well, how long will it last? And they say, well, 17 years is quite a long time for hate to hold something together. So, yeah. That's just a little bit of a back story as to what their marriage is really like, which you don't get in the book. Because Cersei and Robert don't have point of views in book 1. The point of view chapters that the book is written from, there is none for Cersei or Robert in book 1. So you don't really see inside their heads. But the show added this. So you do get more insight into them than you would have gotten in the book. And it was a really good scene, and a lot of people like it, even though it wasn't in the book. Miracle, huh? But anyway, then we go to Ned following Peter to the last person Jon Arryn spoke to before he died. And it ends up being a prostitute with a little baby girl who is Robert's child and his bastard daughter. And she says that she never wanted anything from Robert. She didn't want money or riches or a title. She just, liked him. And that's all it was about. So he sees that, okay, so Jon wasn't trying to pay these people off or something. He just wanted to find these illegitimate children for some reason. So he looks at the little girl who, I guess she says that she looks just like Robert. So all of Robert's bastards look exactly like him. None of his children with Cersei look like him, but every single one of his bastards look like him. Odd how that worked. Okay, but anyway, and Jon Arryn was hunting them all down for some reason or another. So anyway, then he leaves, and he's like, he says, oh, she looks healthy enough and she'll want for nothing. And he walks out and has another little quick chat with Peter about brothels or whatever. Sorry, I don't like Peter. And then he leaves. And then we get to our final episode, or the final scene of the episode. Oh, I can't talk today. The final scene of the episode. He's coming out of the brothel. And the red cloaks, that is the Lannister guards. And Jaime Lannister are waiting outside the brothel. And it's the final scene. Like I said, things are coming to a head. The wolf and the lion will be at each other's throats. And here we go. The wolf and the lion are at each other's throats. So Jaime confronts him about Catelyn capturing Tyrion. He's not happy about that. Because, I mean, other than the fact that a Stark captured a Lannister, Jaime's actually the only one in the family that cares about Tyrion, too, other than Myrcella and Tommen, who are, you know, their kids, so their opinions don't really matter. Yeah, so Jaime confronts Ned about Catelyn taking Tyrion. And Ned says, I guess he's trying to protect Cat here, he says that he ordered her to take Tyrion into custody, even though he didn't know anything about it. He takes the blame and says, oh, well, I told her to take Tyrion into custody. He tries to take the blame so that they won't go after Catelyn. And Jaime says, you know, well, he doesn't want to hear any of it. And he's threatening him, and he's like, and Ned says, you know, if you kill me, you'll never get your brother back. And Jaime's like, yeah, you're right. Don't kill him. Kill all of his men. So that's what they do. They kill all of his men. And Jaime himself kills Jory. He shoves a dagger through his eye. Nice little pretty bit of gore there. Jaime kills Jory, and you know, Jory was Ned's one of his closest friends and his most trusted companion. And Jaime shoves a dagger through his head right in front of him. The Kingslayer. And then Ned and Jaime get into a big long sword fight, and it looks like they're actually pretty evenly matched in this sword fight. It keeps going back and forth where you think Ned's getting the upper hand, and you think Jaime's getting the upper hand. It goes on for a while. And then finally, one of the other guards, while Jaime is trying to fight Ned, one of the other guards shoves a spear through the back of Ned's leg and takes him down. Jaime's pissed, and he knocks out the guard. I don't think he kills him. It looks like he like smacked him in the head with the butt of his sword or something. It goes really quick. But anyway, and Jaime knocks out the guard because he's ticked. Because as we've seen the kind of character Jaime is, but you can see there's still a little bit of an honor to him as well. And he's ticked that, you know, this guy ended the fight in a backhanded way by stabbing Ned through the back of the leg instead of letting the fight play out the way it should have played out. So Jaime's a little bit offended by that and knocks out the guy. And then he gets back on his horse and leaves Ned there, injured, surrounded by all of his dead men, and says, there's the lovely dagger through the eye scene. But as Jaime is leaving, he's like, my brother, Lord Stark, I want him alive, and I want him back. And then he rides off. So yeah, things are going well between the Starks and the Lannisters, the wolf and the lion. Also, during the fight, Jaime makes some comment about, or Peter comes out and he tries to stop the fight before things get started, and he's like, this is the hand of the king. And he's like, no, he used to be hand of the king. Now he's the lord of someplace very far away. See, even when people are being jerks, they're funny too. So, yeah. But anyway, so, Ned's injured. All of his men are dead. He's basically getting taken prisoner here, I guess, at this point in time. And, Jaime says he wants his brother back. Just walks off, rides off, whatever. So, that is the way the episode ends. Jaime and Ned and their street fight. So yeah, that's how we leave off our 5th episode of Season 1, The Wolf and the Lion. And this marks the halfway point of Season 1. We're actually halfway through Season 1 already, can you believe it? Wow. It goes really fast. They only have 10 episodes per season, and everybody says they need more. Everybody. But anyway, so we get left with, what's going to happen at this point. Because we've got Tyrion still being held prisoner at the Eyrie, and crazy Lysa's in charge there, and what's going to happen with that, and now the Lannisters know about it, and they're not happy. So we have all of that, and we also have it set up that Renly is getting it into his head that he wants to be king now instead. So I'm sure that's going to lead to more stuff down the road. Renly trying to, displace the line of succession, especially if it's if it turns out that maybe there's some question about who should be running things if anything happened to Robert, because all the clues are pointing that direction. I don't know, it seems pretty obvious that there's something going on with some reason Jon Arryn wanted to find Robert's bastard children. And Robert and Cersei supposedly have 3 kids. What would his bastard children have to do with anything? But Jon Arryn really wanted to find them, and when he did, he suddenly died, and there was questionable circumstances about that. So as you can see, it's really leaving a lot of things open-ended here as to what is all this going to lead to. Now that the Starks and the Lannisters are fighting, and Ned has found out all these things that are calling other facts into question, and Renly's trying to step up, and Daenerys, who we didn't even see in this episode, I don't think, she's having a baby who's going to be not only Khal Drogo's heir, but the Targaryen heir, and so, yeah, things are really starting to close in on the royal family and the crown, and the Starks are getting caught in the middle of it big time, and what's going to happen there. So anyway, I'm going to end it here pretty much, and we'll have to see what happens in the second half of Season 1, which I'm going to try to get out to you as soon as I can. Like I said, it's really hard for me to get anything out because I have to wait till the house is quiet, which is almost never. So I have to wait on that before I can get anything out to you. But I'm going to try really hard to get us all caught up to the end of Season 4 before Season 5 starts in March or April. And I hope you keep tuning in, and please like it or subscribe or both, and at least make a comment. Let me know what you think. I do have the comment set to approval, but I will approve your comment unless you're trolling or spoiling. That's the only reason I have it set that way, to avoid ruining things for other people and causing drama. So, but still, I'd love to hear comments, legitimate comments about the show or something I said or what anybody'd like to see or any of that stuff. And like I said, I will try to get the next 35 review. Yeah, 35. I'll try to get the next 35 reviews done before Season 5 starts, and wish me luck, and I hope you tune in to see it. Thanks all.